Hi, I'm delighted to be here with Tom Jeffs from Lucidica. Tom, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, indeed.
Now, you are a bit of an IT guru, dare I say. You run Lucidica, which is a small business which actually helps small businesses with their IT, based here in London, and you're like myself, one of the partners of British Library's Business and IP Centre. And I wanted to really chat to you a little bit about IT, small businesses, and how you can use IT to kind of hopefully improve your life. And I thought, I guess one of the first things with IT is lots of people are very comfortable with it, but lots of people feel overwhelmed by it, and it's often been the case, probably since the birth of the laptop, really, isn't it? Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, for somebody starting a business, what are some of the basic things that you would say to them to think about in terms of IT? So I'm starting a business today or tomorrow. What are some of the basic things that I should do or consider?
Well, I mean, I think it stems from what's important to the business, and so you think about what value IT actually provides, and then either look to make sure that if IT goes wrong, it doesn't impact your business, or look at the business processes and look what IT can do for you. Right. So to give you an example, let's say you were a consultancy and you're churning out Word documents predominantly, maybe a little bit of Excel. So for them, and probably this is the case for every business, the first thing to think about is backup. So those documents that you churn out, the things that you produce, you've got to think about, well, I'm a consultant, I'm on the go, I normally use my laptop. What happens if that laptop doesn't turn on one day or I leave it on the train?
And you've already said one thing that's key, isn't it? Because I guess that's the classic scenario, isn't it? You start up, you've got your laptop or that other kind of computer, and I'm so glad you mentioned backup. And it's one of those things that lots of people have good intentions to do, isn't it? But often it doesn't happen. And you must hear this all the time in your business, that people didn't back up, even some businesses where you would have thought they would have done. So backup's the first thing to think about.
Yeah, and absolutely. And by far the best way of doing backup these days is an automatic system. So something that just sits on your computer and continually backs up the data. And you can even look at things like what are called cloud drives. So Microsoft has a decent offering with OneDrive. Dropbox is very good as well, and Google Drive is pretty decent if you're more into Google Apps, and they can store your documents as well. But just looking at something, let's say you work in a more traditional way where you store your documents on your desktop or your My Documents folder, and you're not ready to sort of embrace the cloud wholeheartedly, then looking at something like LiveDrive or Carbonite or Mozy, all those will just sit on your computer, very, very low cost, and just send those documents off and back them up whenever you want.
Right, so you've mentioned then the backup, and you've introduced things like the cloud, and lots of people will be, this is where some people suddenly start getting nervous because they may not know what the cloud is, or that they may be worried about where those documents are. So the cloud is that's distantly hosted. What do we mean by, actually I'm going to ask you, the expert, what do we mean by the cloud, and where actually are those documents?
Okay. Two great questions. Yeah. So the cloud is basically just using computers somewhere else in the world in order to do things for you. So this could be as simple as just storing your documents or your images, right the way through to a complex, say, sales processing or invoicing. A good example is invoicing. Yeah. So increasingly for small business we see cloud-based invoicing platforms. And that's really what we just mean by cloud, using computers somewhere not on your premises, somewhere else in the world in order to do things for you. And in terms of where that information is stored, it's predominantly stored, well, from a European perspective, often it's stored in Ireland because of costs, but it could be really stored anywhere in the world. Anywhere from Canary Wharf has a lot of data centres, Middle England, North England, and then right the way through to America, or if you're with one-on-one, then probably in Germany, where their main data centres are.
Well, it'd be good to talk to you maybe at another time, because I think we could just do a whole online show just talking to you about IT things, which I would certainly want back. But maybe we'll come back also perhaps another time to talk a little bit about that, and in detail about the security side of that. Not so that there's a security issue, but often many people, especially when they're growing their businesses, or if they've got a business where there's a lot where security is very paramount to them, perhaps they might also want to think a lot about what kind of documentation or what kind of things that they store, how it's backed up, and so on, in a lot more detail. So you've talked a little bit about backing stuff up. What else would be an essential? So I guess most people, the classic things, they've got their phone, which is a bit like a mini computer nowadays, and they've got their laptops. You talked a little about their laptop or the computer and backing that up. Any kind of tips for business owners if they are thinking about then a phone, something to on the go? Any general pointers and so on?
So what I'd say with the two tips really there. I mean, the phone is a very personal device. It's probably the most personal piece of technology that we own today. So the most important thing is, don't just go with the crowd. Go into a mobile phone shop and actually have a play around with them and see what feels good in the hand. Certainly around screen size, so they go all the way down from 4-inch up to, well, I mean, you can get ridiculously sized, what they're called phablets, but it's what you're comfortable with. So go into your phone shop. Don't do what your brother or your cousin or your mum or whatever.
Yeah, well, I wish I'd taken your advice a little bit on that, and something, because I think it's really important. Isn't it? You're right. It's very different from each person, isn't it?
Yeah.
If a particular type of battery life is important to you, make sure you've got one that's got a battery. And so if you want, other functions, so it's really important that you really do consider that. And as you say, play around with those, isn't it? Because sometimes you might have somebody you're speaking to might be an enthusiast about one type of phone, whereas how it looks, and for you it might be about functionality or the other way round. So I guess there's lots of stuff here to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many times someone will say, oh, this phone's amazing, it's brilliant, it's brilliant. You go and buy the phone and you're like, this is a little bit annoying on it. And they're like, oh yeah, that is annoying on it as well. And often people do get, because it's so personal, people generally use their phone on a multiple times a day. They become very attached to it and they forget what's annoying and they remember what's great, unless they hate it.
Right.
But certainly no one's going to recommend a phone to you that they hate. Right. And so when someone recommends a phone, it means that they personally like the phone, not you. So I'd say definitely try it out.
Right. And I guess there's an interesting thing here, isn't it? That depending on what you want to do will depend, and if you're a business owner, whether that might need to be, whether you want that all synced and so on to your computer and so on. Yeah.
So this is the other recommendation I was going to make. The first thing you do as a business owner, once you've chosen your phone, or even before that, work out how you're going to synchronize your data. Right. Because your data, it doesn't matter whether you're in products or service, your data, your customer list, how you share information is basically the lifeblood of your business. Right. And so it's absolutely paramount you have a decent system that allows you to share contacts, calendars, emails between multiple devices. Right. So many times we get new clients and they're sort of fudging their way through with emails coming into multiple devices and they're not synchronized and they have to file them multiple times. And so have a look at either the within small business, there's basically two main choices to go. There's the Google way or there's the Microsoft way. There are a few other peripheral services around the edge, but generally speaking it's a choice of two, either Google or Microsoft. And so have a look at the Microsoft offering, which is Office 365 and Hosted Exchange, and have a look at the Google offering. You can sign up for free accounts for Google, you can sign up for trial accounts for Office 365, see which one you prefer, see which one you're more wedded to. Certainly if you're from a traditional Outlook background and you've used Microsoft Outlook all your life, you're going to be much more, you're going to take to Office 365 probably better than you're going to take with Google Apps. But if you're a Gmail user, then you're probably going to take to Google Apps a little bit easier. And then once you've got those set up, then when you buy your phone, when you buy your laptop, when you set everything up, then make sure that synchronization works. And then your backing up of your email is sorted because it's handled by a third party, and you've got this synchronization of business information.
Well, this is interesting. And at what point is it that somebody really should get some specialist IT help or go to a firm like yours? Because I would imagine that if somebody is they are their business, they're a one-person show, for example, it might be, and they've got just one computer, that might be fine, phone, things synced. Once I would imagine that they become larger, then there will be more considerations, but depending who that individual is, then it might become more complex. But I'm thinking about, what is the point when somebody really does need some specific IT help? Because you put your finger on something that's very important, that often people get to a point, maybe you might see this, where there's 3 or 4 of them and they're all on different systems and it's not synced up. So when is that point when you really should?
I think when you're starting a business, you should at least get initial advice, and we give 2 hours free expert advice through the British Library, so you can apply to that and at least have a telephone conversation with one of our engineers just to tee off exactly which way you're going in terms of technology. And as I say, that's provided free from the British Library partnership. But then it depends how quickly your business changes and how reliant your business is on technology. But it should certainly be on a 6-monthly basis. You should have a look around. If you're very technically au fait and you're happy looking at the blogs, looking at what the latest changes in everything from digital marketing to computers to office packages are, then you'll need that help less frequently. But certainly as your business starts to grow, it's always worth at least having a conversation, not necessarily within a consultancy, but certainly with fellow businesses who are in a similar sort of sphere to you, so other consultants, seeing how they do things. And really technology is such a cornerstone of business that it should be a continual review process within the business. But then to expand on that, certainly when you have big changes, so when you do an office move, when you take on new members of staff, certainly when a new job function is created.
Then ask yourself, what are we doing? What do we need? Is it changed? Is it the same?
Exactly. And there's so much in the world of what people don't know that they don't know, and the only way you can fill in this area of what you don't know is by asking questions. And even at business networking, when you meet competitors, when you meet someone who is in, let's say you're in professional services, you meet someone else in professional services, you're in product design, you meet someone else in product design, ask them about what they do, ask them how they do it, and you can start filling in this these gaps.
I think that's such an important point, isn't it? Because if you're somebody who perhaps isn't, it's great if you're very technically savvy, it's great, you're probably keeping your eye on what's going on, you're probably interested in it personally as well as professionally and so on. If you're not, then you really do need to at least be curious, find out. Is your first point that somebody shouldn't be afraid of technology? Because you do get many people who just assume that they're not good when it comes to technology. They think that they're not. So do you want to say anything briefly on that?
Yeah, I mean it's a valid point, and lots of people just don't want to touch it, and they say, okay, I want it to be the same as it's always been and never move forward. But you can run businesses like that, but increasingly it's going to become more difficult to make that a successful business. And increasally you'll find competitors who, even if you're in a business that you don't feel has technology, offers very little at all. And my parents own a restaurant, and certainly traditionally technology wouldn't have given them much of a leg up against their competitors. But then increasingly there's smart tills that will show you the best selling products and particular times of day that these products sell. And this is when they started the restaurant 25 years ago. I mean, okay, some large restaurants might have been doing this, but it's only really in the last 5 years that technology's really allowed them to say, okay, well, at this time of the day we sell more of this particular food or beverage, and so we can rejig our promotion because the tills tell us this.
You've touched on something there I think is really important, and I think I might like to come back to you on a different interview, which is I guess smart technology for businesses, beginning to explore what are some of those simple things or things that you've seen that people would be doing, perhaps they're a small business or a micro business, that just gives them that edge. And I guess there's all sorts of different things there from, for a long time, for example, taking electronic payments might be quite complicated. Now there's all sorts of different options where you can do stuff like that, so that might be something to pick up on. But before we close, I just want to touch on a couple of things, but maybe one thing to touch on is just security, because it's such a big issue. Where shall we start when it comes to online security? Presumably you need to think about that very early on, and just what kind of things do people need to think about? What kind of things do you, for example, help people to think about? Because it's become very pronounced. We know that security is important when we, even from the early days where we just had simple laptops and so on, we might have an antivirus, or we might be told us to think carefully about our passwords. Now I guess things are far more pronounced as the internet's grown, as there's been more of a concern about all sorts of fraud, and even when major companies have had their systems kind of compromised, I guess security is more at a premium. So can you just tell us briefly, where do you even start with this issue of security?
It's a complex issue, but it's about pragmatism really. It's about understanding what you're really capable of and minimising your risk. So the basic rules haven't really changed in the last 10 years. So you need decent antivirus on your machine, particularly if you're on a PC, less so if you're on a Mac. And if you're more of a cautious user, or you're not entirely sure of what's a risk and what's not, then a decent internet security program as well, which will the majority of threats that you'll see online that will protect you against. But it's about not doing something online that you don't know what you're doing. And if you're on a website and you're not entirely sure what this website is, and key things happen when the majority of security gets through people, not through computer security but through social engineering. So a great example is that people's Facebook accounts will be hacked by the person whose account was hacked sending you a message that's something like, here's this funny video of you, and you try and view the video, and then your computer will actually start giving you all of these warnings saying, we can't play this video, do you want to install this plugin in order to play this video? When in fact what that video what that plugin is a piece of malicious software that goes and steals various things from your computer, or in that case hacks into your Facebook account and mails all of your friends. And it's really not a security problem with the computer, it's social engineering. And if a pop-up came up on your computer saying, I want this piece of software that you've never heard of wants to do something to your computer, the majority of us would click no, and as we should. But when we're in these situations where maybe we think it's from a supplier or a customer and they've sent us a slightly odd invoice, or we're on Facebook or we're on LinkedIn and these odd messages are coming up, often we click, just show me, just show me, and that's when the breach happens.
So being diligent all the time and really thinking about what you're doing, especially when because sometimes I guess you're busy doing a piece of work or you're doing this and that, and then you haven't really thought, or as you said, it's from somebody you know, and that's where you may not be as alert and actually thinking twice about it.
Indeed. And computer security has got a lot better, so there's less to worry about these days if you're not clicking on those links. But just whenever you go online, whenever you're doing something, look, if something doesn't feel right online, if you've not seen it before, if there's red warning bars across the top, just be really cautious moving forward with that particular action, particularly around finance. So if it's an odd email from a bank or odd communication from a bank, it doesn't matter how much it looks like that bank's website. Close down the browser and then open it again, and then go to your banking site. Don't proceed with something that looks.
That's a really good piece of advice. So if something like that and you're not sure, then it's better to check your bank's website itself or whatever, and not follow that link. Now, finally, just before we close, and this has been really, really useful, I just want to touch on, I guess, something that might well emerge. So somebody's got their computer, they've got their phone or their tablet or what have you, they've set up, they've thought about what kind of things that they want on it, or whether it needs to be synced, perhaps as team members or associates that they're working with. They've thought a little bit about on that security side. One thing that I just wonder about is that presumably one thing that might emerge quite soon for a small business is something they call a CRM, a content management system. Is that right? CRM, customer relationship management. Yeah, if only I learned my ABC, that may have helped, which is good school. But anyway, putting that aside. So tell us a little bit about that. Presumably that's one of the next things that might well emerge, and it is presumably quite important because they might be wanting to do all sorts of things with their data. Very briefly, just tell us a little bit about about that, because you'd already highlighted how technology can do so many things, and we may not be doing half the things that we could be doing with a little bit more thought.
So one of the pieces of technology that I say that teams should roll in early on is a CRM, and this is customer relationship management, and it's basically a way in which the team as a whole can share information around usually the company's customers or clients. And so when one team member interacts with a customer or updates an address book or a phone number, other team members can see that interaction. And CRMs can be as basic as just a shared address book, so you can see a list of your customers with what kind of maybe industry they're in, or how big they are, or whatever information you want to attach to those customers. And it can be right the way through to a sales management process, so understanding how much business is coming in, to how much you've signed, to who are your top performing salespeople, and it can also manage things like marketing or service related issues.
So some of the common tools that, for example, people often send their newsletters out by, and there are a range of them market. Those, are they essentially, they are a baseline CRM?
I would call them that, yeah. I mean, so things like MailChimp and StreamSend, and certainly Constant Contact are baseline CRM. So MailChimp is predominantly designed as an email marketing engine, so a way of sending mass emails to your clients. But there's no reason why you can't use that, certainly as a marketing CRM, and it does give you marketing information back. So it shows you who's opened your emails, when they opened them, what links they've clicked on, and you can use, and we have clients using that as solely as their sort of as a good description of baseline CRM, and then clients who want to have it a little bit more accessible to their team, often what they'll do is they'll pull the information from MailChimp into something like Karma CRM or Batchbook or a custom actually on-premise address book, and then they can fill in additional information around it. But technology, certainly for small business, is about taking these small steps. It's not about sitting down and saying, right, here we are, in 2 years' time we're going to be this kind of company, so we need this kind of technology system. It's really about saying, right, here we are, these are the things that we need to achieve, these are the things that we need technology to do for us, what technology is out there to do this small step, and then you can build on it.
And presumably, I mean, just before we close, because it's such an important issue then, and it's fascinating, I guess a lot of your work is helping people to understand what it is that they actually do need, because sometimes some business owners are very, very canny, they're very, very shrewd, and they're very mindful of what they need and what they're trying to capture. Do you get situations where sometimes business owners, their business is growing or there's more potential, they want to market, but they really need to sit down with somebody like yourself, or myself actually, I guess there might be all sorts of different aspects to it, to help them understand, actually sometimes I guess, or will you be helping them understand their data, and for them to be beginning to think a bit more about the data of their customers and what they're wanting to achieve? Because I think that sometimes it can be quite complex, because they may not always be that aware of where they're at with it, or what they're trying to achieve.
And absolutely, that's precisely it. And I say that one of the key jobs of our engineers is to understand the technology and how that interacts with the actual business. So they'll sit down with a business owner who knows their business pretty much better than anyone else, but they might have these gaps of how technology fits in and how technology can help them. So engineers will sit down, and this is exactly what we do in terms of the Ask the Expert session with the British Library. A business owner will sit down with one of our engineers and tell them about what kind of problems they're encountering in their business. Often then engineers can tease out things that they didn't even know were a problem because of the way they were doing it they thought was working, but in fact there's a much more efficient way of doing it. But that's the engineer's job. It's a sort of meeting of the engineer sort of pulls the business owner towards them in terms of trying to understand technology, and the business owner pulls the engineer in terms of in understanding their business, and between them they say, okay, well, this is probably the best way that technology can help you at the stage you're at with your business.
And finally, for somebody who's watching this, perhaps they're starting a business or perhaps they're growing it, can you give me a few tips if somebody's looking to find a company or an individual to help them with their IT? Now, obviously it's something that your company does, but often somebody might be based anywhere in the country, anywhere internationally, and they know that they need some kind of help or some kind of support. They know nothing about technology, so they need to ask somebody. What kind of things should you be looking for, and do you have views about whether one person could help them, or whether it is that they should really be looking for a firm. Can you give us just a few basic tips for these questions?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to trust.
Yeah.
So you don't really know how long something takes in technology, not really. That's why you're employing someone. You might have an idea, but my idea might be wildly off. But I think first and foremost it comes down to trust in the relationship. So there's nothing wrong with meeting with the person face to face and understanding whether they really want to help your business, whether they can really understand your business, and whether they're a good fit.
Right, and presumably quizzing them, also quizzing them about you and your business, quizzing them about technology, which would presumably help you find out if they know what they're...
Indeed, and I think a key thing is, do they ask questions about the business, or do they just try and sell you one particular solution? Because it might be that one particular solution is right for you, but it might not. And if the person you're meeting is a salesperson who is selling one particular product, very few salespeople will turn around and go, you know what, our product's not right for you, and be as honest and frank. Normally that happens when you're massively outside their market. So if their normal sale is 10 grand and you're looking to spend £500, salespeople will often tell you our product's not right. But if their product is £500 and every other product is £500 and you're trying to choose between 4 or 5 different products, and the sales guy only sells his product, there's no way he's going to say this isn't for you. I think you should go for a competing product. But I mean, really, independent people are a good yardstick independent people should be there recommending the product that suits you. And so if they ask questions about your business and you can see them almost change their mind as to which product's going to work for them, then you can see a sort of underlying trust there, that they're not recommending something because they get the most margin on it, or it's the one that they know best, but they're really recommending something that they think is most suited for your business once they've understood it. And I think that holds true for really any aspect of technology, whether you're looking to buy a laptop, right the way through to a digital marketing platform or CRM. Do they ask questions about what you're actually going to use it for, or are they just interested in selling you one specific product?
Well, that's really fantastic. That's really great, Tom. And I'd imagine that all the other things that you would do if you're buying anything else, also click in there with, do your research, find out what testimonials they have on their website and anything else.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a whole wealth of reviews and advice available online, and quite a lot of forums you can just ask questions in, particularly around these big online platforms, from Google Apps to MailChimp to StreamSend. You can go in there, ask a question, and you'll get 101 different opinions that you can sift through.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for spending this time with me. I certainly feel as though I've spruced up my IT knowledge, and hopefully we can come back again and pick up on some of these other particular aspects, and perhaps zooming in more in detail perhaps into this thing about when somebody's growing their business, what kind of things that they should think about that they can really use IT to help them move to the next level. So thanks so much. I'm going to leave you to smile at the camera. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you very much, and thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Rasheed.
Thank you.